Hopkins is there, but I do like the fact that Kyler Murray is throwing him the ball. But now we are going to hop into a guy that went 15 picks earlier in an NFL draft, a guy that I absolutely love, Elijah Moore. He fell to the second pick of the second round, and I am a Jets fan, so I hope I'm not too biased here, but I do absolutely love Elijah Moore because you look at the offense there that New York has in place, and they did go out and get Corey Davis, and they do have Denzel Mims there too, and Jamison Crowder, and you may think, well, there's a lot of receivers here, but the fact of the matter is the Jets spent high draft capital to go up and get Elijah Moore. If they're picking him with the 34th pick of the NFL draft when they have all these other holes on their roster, we're talking edge, cornerback, you can make the case that they probably should have picked a player that was an edge or a cornerback, but they went ahead and they picked Elijah Moore probably because they had a first-round grade on him and viewed him as one of the top receivers in this class. And if they didn't think that he could become a number one or number two receiver for the offense and Zach Wilson, they probably wouldn't have even bothered there in picking Elijah Moore. So I think that you have all these wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s in New York, but you don't have a true alpha wide receiver 1 in New York. And you saw Denzel Mims last year. Yes, he had injuries throughout the season, so we didn't really see enough from him. But clearly the Jets don't believe in him enough to be a number one receiver because they drafted Elijah Moore. And when you're looking at college football last season, Devontae Smith had a great season, but a lot of people are not talking about Elijah Moore enough. And I believe Elijah Moore had the second most receiving yards in college football last season in a shortened season. So this is a guy that you can make the case for is a very, very good receiver. And it was definitely disappointing for him to see him fall out of the first round. But I absolutely love this landing spot with Zach Wilson and Elijah Moore both being rookies. I think the chemistry is going to develop. And plus, Elijah Moore is a blazing fast receiver. He can run like a 4.3 40. And this is a guy that's an impressive route runner to me, too. He really has a little bit of it all. He may not be the biggest receiver, the biggest, tallest receiver, but I think that he has the potential to be a slot receiver and a true number one receiver for the Jets in years to come. So I am all about Elijah Moore this year and going forward. I think that Elijah Moore may even be better than Rashad Bateman and may be the third or fourth best receiver in this class.
Well, I just want to state for the viewers, anybody that's been listening to us knows that you're not just being a homer on him because you were higher than just about everybody in the industry, like the entire draft process before the draft. So I know it's not just because you landed at the Jets, because I would call you crazy if it was just for that reason. But, I think you make interesting cases. You also, knowing you're not you weren't high on the Corey Davis signing. And I don't think that you're extremely high on Mims. I was really, really into Mims last year going into the draft process. I did not end up with him on any teams because his draft stock kind of just started skyrocketing, and he got to the point where I was just taking guys like Pittman over him still. And then I wasn't getting him on the turnaround, because I also had guys like Claypool and Gibson ranked ahead of him. But I liked Mims, and I thought he was actually a really, really interesting prospect. So I'm not willing to give up on him after he's just got that alpha body. I'm not willing to give up on him after a year that complete dumpster fire in New York last year. They got a completely new offense. And I think Corey Davis kind of showed that he could be the number one wide receiver when Antonio Brown was hurt last year. Most of those guys actually kind of started splitting targets down the stretch about pretty evenly. So I do think that Corey Davis, they paid him. I think they're going to at least attempt to get him in the number one spot. And I do think Mims profiles really well on the outside as well. You asked why they went out and got him with that high pick. I think that what Corey Davis and Mims' strengths are like down the field jump ball situations. Whereas I think Elijah Moore profiles more is like an underneath guy that can really thrive if he gets the volume. I just wonder how much the volume is going to be there if they're not running a dominant amount of sets of 3 wide receiver sets, because I do think that the other 2 wide receivers with their big bodies and big catch radiuses will outsnap him on the outside.
Well, it's interesting that you're high on Corey Davis, and I know I've said before that I'm not high on Corey Davis, So I think that's another reason as to why I'm higher on Elijah Moore. I'm just not buying the fact that Corey Davis succeeds in New York. 2 years ago, not last year, but if we look back 2 years ago, and a lot of people probably have wiped that from their mind, but I have not wiped that season from my mind because I was big on Corey Davis heading into that season, and he completely let me down. Like, completely let me down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure. I think he was probably healthy the entire season, and I'm not even sure if he finished as a top 50 receiver in the league. And so fast forward a year, and he had a very successful year with the Titans. I'm not knocking him, but here's a guy who was picked with the 7th or 8th pick in his draft, and he was supposed to be the number one receiver for the Titans, and we never really saw that work out for the Titans, and I think they declined his 5th-year option. So there's a reason why the Titans aren't holding on to Corey Davis, and I think, unfortunately, Corey Davis is a receiver who can be great here and there, like a Devontae Parker, but he's not consistent enough, and he's not a true number one receiver. You got to, in a way, force some targets for him to be successful. And I think the Jets are just going to realize from the get-go that our number one receiver is probably Elijah Moore, and our number two receiver is probably Denzel Mims. So I'm not scared about Corey Davis getting targets. People were saying the same thing last season about Brashad Perriman and how he was going to have a huge role in that New York offense. And what happened to Brashad Perriman, who, by the way, I was extremely low on Brashad Perriman last year. What happened to Brashad Perriman? He did nothing for that offense. So I think just because the Jets went after Corey Davis, that doesn't mean that he's going to automatically demand targets. It's Zach Wilson's offense now, and I think that Zach Wilson is going to gravitate towards guys like Elijah Moore over Corey Davis and a Jamison Crowder and Denzel Mims. I think that Elijah Moore will end up being his number one receiver, and I think that the ceiling for Moore is very high too. It might not initially happen with Elijah Moore, but I think by the end of the season, we're going to really realize how good of a player that Elijah Moore is.
Yeah, so like